Welcome back. Turkey's currency is in free fall today. It comes after Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan shockingly fired the country's central bank chief over the weekend. Today, the Turkish lira is plunging, dropping to near record lows against all the major currencies. CNN Business Emerging Markets editor John Defterios and our senior international correspondent Arwa Damon are following these developments. They join us now live. Thanks for being with us, John. I want to start with you because this recent ping pong is very reminiscent of the 2018 currency crisis. Talk to us big picture. Give us the macro level perspective here.
Well, I tell you, this is a policy, Lynda, that has both the emerging market economists that track Turkey and the average Turk shudder, right? Because you have inflation running at 14% a month. Interest rates remain low because they don't want to change policy, according to President Erdogan. And then you also have this idea we have a revolving door at the central bank. This is the third central banker in less than 2 years. And as a result, there's this lack of confidence that you see in the currency market and in the stock market in Turkey at the same time. If you take a look at the latest quote, we've stabilized a lot in the last 3 hours. It's trading below 8 to the US dollar. But in the last 24 hours, we hit a low of 8.48, just off the all-time low of 8.58 in November. So as you're suggesting, for the last 2.5 years, Turks have been dealing with this. On the Istanbul Stock Exchange, we had to have a halt in trading twice because of the sharp drops that we saw, direct related to the weaker Turkish lira, and we're finishing down here nearly 10% on the day. But if you're not going to raise interest rates to protect your currency, your foreign exchange reserves are low because you spent so much in the last 2 years in doing so. There's even discussion now of capital controls, limiting the amount Turks can cash out or put into a foreign currency as a result of what we're seeing today. It's gotten so desperate, Lynda, there's even talk of having jewelers put in gold into the central bank as a tax to build the deposits for the central bank because of this war against the currency traders who are winning it right now.
That is incredible. John, stand by for us. I want to bring in Arwa because, Arwa, you're on the ground. Just give us a sense of how this is impacting people's everyday lives.
Well, look, Lynda, it's been impacting their everyday lives for years now, ever since 2018, pretty much, when the lira crashed fairly significantly. And inflation here, as John was mentioning, is extremely high, and people just simply put are not able to stay ahead. The cost of just about everything has gone up significantly. I was speaking to a friend of mine who works as a stylist, and she cannot raise the rates that she's charging her customers because she's afraid of losing them entirely, and yet the money that she's getting for the services that she provides is buying her a lot less basics. I mean, food costs have gone up, cab costs have gone up, and you have to remember, Turks were going through this before COVID hit. They're also now dealing with the impact of COVID on the economy, on their day-to-day lives, on their abilities to make money. Another small example, so the pet shop that I go to get cat food, there the owner imports cat food from abroad. It's costing him a lot more in Turkish lira to import that, but he also cannot raise his prices to cover the gap that he's selling to the public to because people won't be able to afford it. So he's taking a loss. And people watch this currency fluctuating, especially over the last 24 hours, back and forth, back and forth. And yes, of course, it does create a certain level of anxiety because at the end of the day, they don't know where it's going. They don't know where it's going to stabilize. And again, I bring it back to the fact that we're still feeling globally and in Turkey the impact of coronavirus on people's livelihoods. And so now add to that the anxiety over the economy. It does not make for a very settled mental state of mind for so many people.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting to hear how this is impacting people that you're seeing in your day-to-day life there. John, I just want to go back to you because politically this goes hand in hand with the erosion of confidence in Turkey's government, particularly Erdogan's AKP party. Walk us through that and why this is such a lightning rod issue.
Yeah, you talk about Erdoganics. This is President Recep Tayyip Erdogan keeping, if you will, Lynda, to a very unconventional policy. Usually in Economics 101, you raise interest rates when your currency is under pressure and to bring down inflation. He's never believed in that. In fact, he thinks there's an interest rate lobby, conspiracy on the international markets to go against Turkey, which is dangerous because it strikes that nationalist tone in the fight to keep him into power. We have to remember, for the better part of 18 years, he's been either prime minister or president. He has a tight grip on power, but he's losing the global economic battle. And I think he went a bridge too far, if you will, when he put in his son-in-law in 2018, making reference to what Arwa was talking about when this currency crisis started, Berat al-Barak. And in that 2-year window, because he had no economic experience and he followed his father-in-law's policy of keeping interest rates low, they spent nearly $130 billion defending the lira. That's an incredible amount of money for an economy the size of Turkey today. So the options are limited right now, but he has no real political foe that could really take him out of office. The real challenge, I think, now, because before the elections, he stoked inflation, stoked growth to 7.5%. They actually grew last year 1.8%, which was a miracle considering the state of the pandemic in Turkey. All that goodwill eroded away here as we see the currency under pressure, Lynda.
Certainly has. All right, Damon, I want to thank you for joining us, but I want to keep you around, John, if I can, because there's another big story that we are following. Oil, of course, with no one traveling during the pandemic. Saudi Aramco, the world's biggest oil company, saw their annual earnings drop over 40% last year. What does that tell us about the year that was and what we can expect in the year to come?
We were on a conference call with a limited group of Middle Eastern reporters with Amin Nasser, the CEO of Saudi Aramco, and he says, like, I kind of feel relieved because that was the worst year in the energy business since being president and CEO of the company. And that's certainly an understatement, because what you're talking about, Lynda, was that demand was down better than 20% in the second quarter of 2020 at the height of the pandemic. Overall, down 10% for the year. And as a result, if you look at the results for Saudi Aramco, earnings down 44% to $49 billion. It is the largest oil company in the world, one of the biggest companies in the world, as a matter of fact, still profitable, but stacked up against $87 billion a year before. Kind of a double whammy here. They're in the OPEC Plus agreement. Saudi Arabia decided to prop up prices by cutting production by another 1 million barrels a day in February and March. This hurts their revenues because they're not exporting as much oil. That's difficult. Then we have to think of the wild card for Saudi Aramco and for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia overall. It is almost on a weekly basis now. We have Houthi rebels firing attacks through drones on Saudi Aramco oil facilities. The latest was last Friday for a Riyadh refinery. We saw this in Jeddah over the last couple of months. And in the last year, off and on, in the belt, the oil belt of Saudi Arabia, Ras Tanura, Abqaiq, these are facilities that have been either struck at or actually hit. They have very good defenses, but every week, week in and week out, they're getting tested on a regular basis for their oil facilities. Although the CEO said they've been 99.9% reliable, still getting that oil out of the country.
Always good to pick your brain, John Defterios, as always. Thanks so much for covering those developments on two big stories.